Hi, this is Paige.
And this is Al.
And we would love to welcome you to We Love Minnesota Theater.
We have a special guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, this is Danielle.
All right, welcome. And what play are we going to talk about today?
Well, we went and saw Ibsen's A Dollhouse at the Guthrie.
Excellent. Now, I will say I did not see this play, so I will be doing less talking this time. So, with that, we will get started. All right, so you saw Doll's House at the Guthrie, and I read in the program that they kind of had a different interpretation of it. What did you think? First of all, what do you think about Ibsen's play itself? It's one that's been around for a while. And then what did you think of the particular way that the Guthrie did it?
I was not a big fan of The Doll's House when I read it in college. I'm not sure I fully understood it at that point in my life. But in seeing it, I think I had greater appreciation for it and how progressive it was, particularly for its time. And on women's issues, it's still very relevant that, women are not mothers and wives first, but they're human beings.
And I think we talked about this because I also had a similar experience where I didn't dislike it, but it didn't particularly resonate with me when I read it. And seeing it made me realize how much bigger of a deal it was that, spoiler alert, Nora leaves at the end. And I think seeing that just made me have greater appreciation for how scandalous that was.
So my memory of it, having seen it a long time ago, the general gist is that the husband is kind of in charge, but treats his wife kind of as, oh, don't worry about it, I've got it taken care of. And is there some sort of metaphor about how she's like a bird in a cage or something like that?
Very much so, and I think in many productions, and in this one included, her movements are almost bird-like. She kind of flits around, she plays with her hands, she's, kind of moves quickly from one place to the next.
Yeah, he calls her his little bird.
Oh, okay.
And she sings, "Sing for me, little bird."
Ah, okay. And then do you think that this particular interpretation at the Guthrie do you think it had anything different maybe than what you remembered?
Yeah, so I did a little research on the adaptation, which is by Amy Herzog, because I was curious about that very thing. And she did this adaptation in 2023 and won a Tony for her adaptation, and they did it on Broadway. And it is shorter, so it was about 2 hours instead of the original being closer to 3 hours, which I appreciated.
Yes.
And modernized some of the language as well. And so I think making it very accessible to people, and in those subtle ways pointing out how relevant this still is, how much these issues still exist for women of having to make these choices and feel like you cannot put yourself first ever.
Totally. And I think this is also in the original, but something that really struck me is how little I liked Nora. She's a little vapid. She's pretty self-interested, self-absorbed, talks about with her friend who's much less well off. She's bragging about her husband's promotion and how much money her husband is making and, all these fineries that she's had to do without, but now she gets. And she's kind of unrelatable to these lower class people. And
yet she still deserves to be a human being and not have to give everything up to be wife and mother. So even though she's not particularly likable.
Yes, and I think you still, even though I didn't like her, I still empathized with her and still got this understanding of why she's the way she is. And it's because she was shuttled straight from her father's house, where she was treated like a child, to her husband Torvald's house, where she's treated like a child, and she isn't allowed to make her own decisions. And how she gets what she wants is by playing down her intelligence and her agency. That's ironically how she gets agency, is by saying, oh, Torvald, I just need a little spending money. And that's when he gives her money. And so she's learned. And so you understand why she is that way. And it's still kind of hard to watch, especially in the beginning, where you're just like, you are not someone I would want to be friends with necessarily.
Is it almost like she's expected to take on the identity or get her identity through the men in her life, and therefore she's almost playing the role that's expected of her, maybe?
She is.
Yeah, for sure. She's to be what they want her to be.
Yeah.
She's to be delightful, pretty to look at. She's to sing. She's to, cater to their whims. And that's both her father, who's not in the play, but who she speaks of, and her husband. And even the friends, the doctor.
Yes, she has almost kind of a flirtatious, teasing, but very loving relationship with their dear friend who's a doctor. And we really liked him in the production. Mm-hmm. We thought he was excellent, just gave kind of that charm and warmth. And yeah, she kind of plays a character with him too.
Does she go through any transformations before the end? Do you already all of a sudden see something that's there? Is it believable?
I think so. I think it's hard, and we talked about this. It's so ingrained in this time period. And so, she is just distraught over the fact that not that forging a signature isn't a crime today, but I think it feels, for some reason, less important. And she had to take her husband, or the reason why she forged the check is she needs money to take her husband away to Italy to get better because he's ill, and he is too proud to speak of the fact that he's ill. And some of that is hard to fathom in this day and age, where you're like, well, if someone was ill, even a man, we talk about that more openly, and you don't take someone away to Italy to get better, you go to the hospital. And so there are some differences. But like you said, I think the adaptation, the language was very easy to understand. And I think the adaptation did a good job of making it clear, and the actors did a good job of making it clear that these were high stakes in that day and age.
Yeah.
Well, I always think of watching all the, Pride and Prejudice or the Manners thing, or someone is just, I'll never get a good reference again. If one person speaks ill of me, it'll destroy our reputation. It feels like something like that, where people weren't given second chances if you were in a certain level of society.
Yeah, your reputation, I think, meant even more than it means today. You didn't have background checks in the same way. You didn't have, credit scores. You had your reputation. Mm-hmm. And that's how you got jobs, and that's how you got money, and that's how you got, it was based on, can I be trusted? Can my wife as an extension of me be trusted?
Anything else about the script or the interpretation?
Well, we did not realize this before we went and saw it, which I think is kind of interesting. But the door slam at the end of the play is kind of an iconic moment in Ibsen's play. We were reading about it, and one article said the door slam that was heard across the world. This show caused outrage when it first came out, that that a woman could leave her husband and children. And I think the children was really the key part, that a woman could leave her children and slam the door on the way out. And we were talking about in the play, she never leaves the house. All the other characters come in and out of the house, but Nora never does until the very end, when she leaves for good. And this adaptation had her leave the door open. And then you see her go out into the snow. And that was an interesting choice, and one that we didn't fully realize the significance of in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you think the significance is of that?
Well, I think the play is less about her not wanting to be a wife and mother and more about the fact that she has never had the chance to be anything else. I don't think the point is that women should slam the door on being wives and mothers, but that the door should be open to explore other things. And if they ultimately want to be a wife and mother, great, but they get to explore the other options.
Yeah, it's about choice.
Yeah.
Having a choice, making the choice, and possibility. I see the door open as possibility.
Yeah.
Instead of, I think it's, in its time, she really would be just destitute. Leaving her husband, divorcing her husband, she was going to the poorhouse.
Yeah.
And now I think you could interpret it a little differently as her life now is open to possibilities.
What's the saying? When one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I thought that was interesting, and we didn't fully realize that in the moment.
All right, now we want to talk a little bit about the technical aspects. This was at the Guthrie, as we know, but maybe if someone's listening to this in Norway, you might not know this. But the Guthrie is one of the better regional theaters, at least we think so. We're a little biased because we love Minnesota theater, but they're able to, really go all out when it comes to staging and those types of things. So anything stand out with you that made this an interesting production in general or an interesting Guthrie production? And maybe we can talk about some of the other Guthrie things we've seen in the past.
Well, it was well done and excellent, and the set just looks rich and totally in this world.
It is a more minimalist set, though, and that's part of this adaptation, is that it's more minimalist. So you really just have this one room with a rug and a chair and a chaise lounge and a little desk or table at the back and a door, two doors, the door to his office and the door to outside. But, it's representative. It's not full-blown. But there were two things that stood out to me. The wood, the color, so everything was kind of a blue-gray, and the wood floors were this gorgeous blue wood painted floors that were just stunning. And then the snow.
Yes, and when I learned about Ibsen, a huge part of what we talked about is that, he has become such this iconic playwright, and his plays have become so iconic, but he really wrote about Norway for a Norwegian audience. He was really speaking to the things he was seeing directly around him, and they happened to capture universal themes that enchanted other people too. But I think the snow was really a great touch, and I think made you draw this connection as a Minnesotan of we have this kind of culture with all this very Norwegian or kind of Scandinavian culture. I just wonder how the snow and the setting and the Scandinavian-ness all kind of worked well in Minnesota.
It takes place at Christmas time, and there are just piles of snow around the stage, just fluffy white snow. And then off behind the stage are these hills that, could be mountains in the distance of snow.
Yeah.
Isn't it an interior set, though, or were these out the window, or did they show you the side of the house and the indoor and the outdoor? Or, obviously there wasn't a pile of snow in the living room.
The interior set was a platform of the room, and then around that outside, what implied outside, they didn't have actual windows, around that platform that was the living room or the sitting room were these piles of snow.
Ah, cool.
And at the very end, Nora walks out into the snow, and I don't think you see any of the other characters in the outside until that moment. But I thought, even though it was used minimally, it kind of, no one was actually walking or acting in that space until the very end. It just added such a nice touch. And I think the isolation, she's incredibly isolated.
Yes. And it's cold.
Yes.
In the whole scheme of the Guthrie, though, it was, it was rich, it was opulent, it felt very detailed, but it was not splendiferous the way some Guthrie things have been. There was not water on stage, a giant pool. There was not flames. There weren't, it was much more of a simple set for the Guthrie.
Yeah, and just kind of a background on that. We saw recently is it For the People by Larissa Fasthorse, where it rained on stage. We saw it rain on stage. We saw a giant wrecking ball come through the wall.
Yes.
Which was
yes.
very impressive. So that was good, but that was really well done. We've also, like you mentioned, we saw like the ancient Greek tales, and there was a lot of Metamorphosis, and there was a lot of people. There was water on stage, which was very, very effective. And then they brought the water back on stage for a Shakespeare play,
Twelfth Night,
and I just spent the whole time being like, oh, everybody's socks are wet, and it's got to be really uncomfortable. And it just kind of bothered me.
It distracted more, I think, in Twelfth Night.
3 out of 4 isn't bad, but they've got a thing going with various forms of precipitation. So it felt very in line with the storytelling. It felt like the set really supported the storytelling. And I liked the costumes. She's in this purple gown with the, very period appropriate with the little train and the kind of button-up blouse on top. And it's got these almost purple undertones. She's a little more colorful than, especially her husband is very much in grays and blacks, and Krogstad is also in sort of grays and blacks, and her friend, and she's a little bit brighter than all of them.
Yes, but by the end, she's wearing black.
There was that, yep. In the very end, she's wears black.
Not the bright little bird anymore, entertaining others. Yeah.
Interesting.
And then should we talk about the transitions?
Yeah.
The transitions were interesting because they moved from the scene before to the next scene with a just short bit of music, dimmed lights, and they would do like a half rotation around the stage or like shift to a new seating arrangement, and then the next scene would start. It was like a very sort of representative, like we are in a little bit of time has passed and boom. It was pretty rapid, and I thought that actually worked well in keeping it moving, but indicating that time has passed, and you didn't see Nora leave stage for both acts, and I thought that was effective. I mean, she left at intermission, but... Yeah,
I agree. It was a very effective but efficient way to indicate time has passed, we've moved to the next thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just thought the lighting and sound supported it, like you said, minimalistic.
There was not a lot of music. There was not a lot of sound except in those transitions. I noticed it at the end.
Yeah.
But I think it was very still.
Yeah, which I think also has something to do with that environment.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying there was or wasn't music at the end?
There was music at the end when she was leaving.
Yeah, which is interesting because she's such the little songbird.
Yeah. No, there was not a lot of sound throughout the show.
Very good. What snacks did you have at intermission?
That's a very important question. We got the chocolate chunk cookie, which is excellent at the Guthrie.
Yep.
And
I got a Coke.
Ah.
It was delicious. Yep. They have such a wide selection at the Guthrie, so.
Did you order ahead of time?
No.
Can
you do that at the Guthrie?
You can. It was not a sold out show. It was a good audience. We were there on a night when they had sign language too, so across from us, we were on stage left, And on stage right, the people sitting in that section, there were sign language interpreters, a man and a woman. So I think they were splitting up the parts by the male and female parts. So I could sort of glance over and see what was happening over there too, which was interesting.
Yeah. And another interesting thing, unrelated to the snacks, but as the lights dimmed for the show to begin, they announced that someone else, the understudy, would be playing Torvald, which is the husband. I mean, it's a very big role in the show. And I thought he did an excellent job. He was very solid. But what we found out later is, looking at the program, is he is not only the understudy for Torvald, but he is the understudy for all three male characters in that show. He is the understudy for Torvald, Krogstad, and the Doctor.
He's like the swing guy.
Which are big parts.
Yeah.
So he has to have all those parts memorized and know the blocking.
Yeah.
And the through line of those characters, which is...
And be ready to perform them at the drop of a hat.
Which is kind of stunning. I mean,
Wow.
that's amazing to be that sort of much of a universal understudy. So I thought he did a good job. Would be curious what the actor who normally plays Torvald was like. There were times when I felt like he could have commanded Nora even more.
Totally. Yeah, and I would be honestly curious to see what he would be like in those other roles too.
Totally.
I mean, I'm impressed. Those are three very different characters.
Totally. I could imagine him more easily as the Doctor, but it's harder to imagine him as Krogstad. But I'm sure that he can do it. Like,
Totally. Yeah.
Whenever you get that little slip of paper in the program where it's like, this person will be played by that, I feel like it's really hard because that actor you're watching them, or actress you're watching them the whole time saying, yeah, but is the other one better?
Right,
Yes,
right.
totally. It's
bad.
almost a disservice.
Yeah.
You almost want them to just... Because he was, excellent, and I think... Yeah, you almost want them to not tell you until it's over.
Yeah, there's only 6 people in this show, and they all have very big parts and have a lot to do. So it was impressive to have somebody step in.
So was it at the the thrust state or the 3/4 round, or what do you call that one?
That's a thrust.
The thrust.
Yeah, the thrust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and were you on the slope?
We were on the audience right slope.
Okay, so for those of you in Norway, the slope is not a ski path in Lillehammer. Well, it is actually, but there's usually only 3 to 5-year-olds on the slope there. But the slope is a section of the Guthrie where they're the cheapest seats in the house, and they're considered the worst view, but they're not bad, and we end up there a lot. They're kind of, it's called the slope because it's very steep, like it goes up and down very rapidly.
Yeah. I thought because it was this more realistic living room setting and the blocking felt a little more natural, I thought that your view was actually pretty good on either side, and it really did not bug me most of the time.
Not at all. I think they do an excellent job with the blocking of that, and they're facing all sides all the time. So
and shifting around.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it was great.
One last question for this section. Did they say, please take your seat the show will start in 5 minutes? Did they do that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And do you think it's really 5 minutes, or are they giving you a little extra time?
I think there's cushion built in. We were in classic Vanderhoofian fashion, arriving at the last possible second. They literally told us when we showed them where we were sitting, run. Run up the stairs.
I do think, as when we were showing her our tickets, it was right at 7:30 when it was supposed to start. Luckily, they start at 7:35.
So we ran up the stairs. There was another couple next to us, so we weren't the only ones, and we showed them our tickets and got in.
Well, at least they didn't say, run, you fools.
You fools.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was not.
Only at the Guthrie do you get stage directions given to you as an audience member.
Exactly.
Run to your seats now, pursued by a bear. Excellent. All right. What were 3 things that you liked?
That's a good question. I think the set was just such a highlight for me, even more so than any of the other technical elements. I loved the snow and the view behind, like you talked about.
I agree. Yeah, that was definitely in my top 3.
What else? I mean, so many good things. It's hard to choose the standout elements.
It sounds like, in retrospect, you had to think about it, but the iconic, the door not slamming seems to have been something that stuck with you. Would you consider that?
Yeah, it definitely made us think. And I always love that about a play when I'm thinking about the production 2 days later and talking about it and wondering, that says something. So I agree. I guess for me, I did really like this adaptation. I don't remember the other adaptation, so I don't know that I'm comparing it to the older adaptations, but I liked the choices of this adaptation. Modernizing the language a little bit, making it shorter, and then leaving that door open at the end.
Yes, I agree. That was going to be something I was going to say. And there was some insults in there that had clearly, Torvald calls Nora some, not nice things and moments of anger. And those were updated to have a little bit more of that effect. And, we
shock.
Yeah. And we hear some of those more old school insults and it doesn't really mean anything to us, and so to update that I think was good. Yeah, that adaptation was great.
So something that was shocking in its day doesn't shock us anymore because it's like, yes. Good day, sir, like
right,
it's like,
right.
And then I thought Nora was strong.
Very strong.
I thought she was strong. I thought that is a meaty role and she does not leave the stage. And all that physicality is all the flitting around. And I mean, she's put through so much and is just kind of nervous and on edge and playing that all the way through.
Yeah, she really has to command the stage and the show. Like she is in almost every scene.
Yeah, and you were just watching her.
Yes.
Hanging on.
Yes.
So, having not seen it, but one thing I was curious about, and from my previous exposure to it, it's a very, very Scandinavian play, and the time it was written, any other sort of Scandinavian influences in it?
That's interesting. I wouldn't know. That was something I was super curious about, especially with all the snow and the set and just having studied it and knowing it's Ibsen, who is writing from this place that, especially at the time, was not known for being particularly progressive, particularly artistic. Like, it wasn't a country that was producing all this art at the time. He was kind of this anomaly. And so I would be super curious to hear what elements are very Scandinavian. I mean, what elements of the manners and the society even are the time period versus are Norwegian. And also maybe some of that was removed or shifted in the adaptation to be more American. And just in the translation, I think inevitably in the translation you're
you take
things
out some of those references. I do think that the colors felt very Scandinavian to me, this sort of gray, blue-gray set with the floor and then the, furniture. And to me, that felt very Norwegian. But I don't know with the translation and the adaptation. But I do think one of the strengths of the play is that it doesn't feel so specific. It feels so universal that you could imagine pretty easily that it's in the US or that it's in Britain or that it's in a lot of places. And as I was doing a little research, there's several adaptations. I mean, the Guthrie did one 15 years ago that was more modernized. And then there's one that I was reading about that takes place in the Middle East, I think in Iraq.
Yeah.
Which has a whole other set of meaning of the lack of freedom that women have. So I think in some ways it doesn't feel so specifically Norwegian, and that's a strength. That It has these, little things, but, that it just feels universal.
Yeah.
Very good. One thing, if you were the director or in charge, that you might change, and it might not be a better or worse decision, but something that you were thinking, I wonder if this was done differently.
Well, for me, when Nora dances, I would have just loved it to simply be longer, because when she dances, it's sort of, my impression is it's sort of representative of her unraveling. And I love that moment, but I obviously love dance. And so I think if I were the director, I would do more with that moment.
Yeah, I had the same, where I felt like there needed to be a little bit more choreography. And yeah, I wanted to see her actually dance it out a little more, see more actual steps. It felt a little too short, too rushed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like they already cut it down from 3 to 2 hours, so it wasn't a case where it was 20 minutes too long.
It actually, we talked about that. It was just right. You were following along for every scene, and it ended right at the perfect moment. I think this adaptation did an excellent job with the pacing.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. All right, for the final section, we're just going to wrap it up with a few little historical references and things that may be true and they may be just theories. But one thing was, I was a little bit disappointed that I wasn't able to go. And do you think this was a play that men could go to, or were men supposed to stay at home?
I think men need to go to this. I got you a ticket next week. No.
I see.
No, I think it's good for men to think about, and hopefully for men and women to talk about together, for all genders to talk about together of, what are these roles that we put each other in, and how do we still do that today?
Well, I was not at home here like in a little bird cage, but I had my vaccination, so I kind of made a bird's nest in my bed, and I think I was asleep before the second act started. So I don't know if I would have been able to make it through the play. So I'm glad that you were able to go and share this experience with me. I vicariously, some of the things like the open door, just seem like really powerful, and now I'm intrigued. Sounds like it was a positive experience. The other thing was, Ibsen, he lived long enough to experience Norway's emancipation from the rule of Sweden, which in some ways feels like, what could be bad about being ruled by Sweden in the first place? They have these little cinnamon rolls with a little sugar, and
they have universal health care.
Yeah.
No, not that.
And the only 3 colors we can paint our house are red with white trim, maybe that was one of the things. But when we were traveling once in Norway on their Independence Day on the 17th of May, we asked them, what happened on that day. Like, was there a war? And they said, oh no, we just got together and we talked about it, and there was a document signed, and then we were independent. So
very different from the U.S. history of bloody wars.
It made me think about Nora's emancipation, and I'll have to go read up on Norway's emancipation from, Sweden's rule.
Terrible Sweden.
Any last thoughts for you on the production or the experience? It sounds like you definitely would classify it as Minnesota theater that you loved and got a lot out of.
Definitely.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be talking to you again soon. Goodbye.